All right, so just to start, just wanted to thank you all for being here. Really excited to do this. It was a great process and really enjoyed studying for the project. Beginning by introducing myself, my name is Greg Liverpool. I go to Coastal Carolina University. I'm a rising senior. I graduate in December of 2022. I work for the Coastal Carolina football team in player personnel, recruiting, and then video. And then I'm also from the Washington, D.C. metro area. Grew up in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Beginning with my player engagement portion, if I were to build an organizational culture, my overall mantra would be to be one of one, which I define as the daily, relentless pursuit of excellence individually and organizationally. Really, for me, it's a combination of personal values that I find important, 5 core values: internal drive, integrity, selflessness, resilience, and adaptability. From an internal drive standpoint, I talk about win the day and always search for ways to improve. At Coastal Carolina, our head coach talks about striking the stone, which is more about a mentality of coming in every day, looking for ways to improve, and leaving the day better than you were the day before. Integrity, being consistent, honest, and united. That goes from a personal standpoint in terms of handling your business when nobody's watching, but also from an organizational standpoint in terms of structural team integrity from a unity standpoint as well. Selflessness, being willing to sacrifice for the team and serve others. I talk about the Golden State Warriors philosophy that they've embodied over the years, strength in numbers, which is really a rallying call to bring the whole team together and kind of rally around a common goal. Resilience, embracing adversity and always finish. So just having a growth mindset and finishing to the end. And then adaptability, learn and evolve and apply new knowledge. There's a quote by Kobe Bryant: "There's no greater metaphor for life than sports." Just always growing through the setbacks and learning from adversity, adapting and adjusting as you see fit. From an operations standpoint, the department that I chose to take on would be the scouting department. The mission statement is to facilitate the team building process through collaboration, candor, and a relentless dedication to finding the winning edge in every facet of the game. The department focus will be to build a winning team brick by brick. Once again, trying to identify those unique traits that separate players and those traits that embody the core values of the organization. Creating cohesion through separate processes and things that will create a natural flow and cohesion to the group. And then how we define success, competition at all levels of the roster, making sure that we're understanding our division, opponent personnel, positional, we're as strong as our weakest link. From a unit standpoint, strong leadership in all position groups. And then from a team standpoint, all 53 players having strong football character that contribute to winning at the highest level. From a process standpoint, 3 phases. Phase 1, branding culture. The team should embody the city that it plays in. So if it's in a tougher, more hard-nosed city that embodies that, the team should feel like that when they step on the field. Ensuring high-level quarterback play from the beginning. And then building inside out, starting with the offensive line, defensive line, and working your way out, understanding the importance of those position groups to success. Phase 2 would be preparation, and for me, I would want to be more conservative in terms of acquiring free agents. In draft strategy, I would be more aggressive to acquire picks, and then in-season roster management, aggressive to understand the bottom half of the roster and acquiring the best players that fit the team. Phase 3 would be competition, winning the division first, understanding opponent personnel, assembling a locker room of high-level competitors, and then acquiring veteran leadership that knows how to win and can learn from that. Younger players can learn from experience. For staff and operational needs, administration, college scouting, pro scouting, and then football research, having people that cover all 4 of those departments that understand those things at a high level. 6 area scouts there at the bottom, standard in terms of staff needs, and then operational needs, an Exos Thundercloud scouting database, digital draft and free agency boards, Python, R, Microsoft Office for analytics, access to national scouting services, and then laptops and tablets to allow a seamless process for all staff members. Moving into team development, my team development grading scale is based on a color coding system that I learned at Coastal Carolina. Really, those blue and green colors are the ones that I'll be focusing on for most of my presentation, even in personnel, analytics, and those aspects. hard go, and then go. Those are people that I think separate themselves in terms of their talent and ability to provide a unique trait on the field or off the field in terms of their character. Those are ideal fits, people that contribute to winning at the highest level. A hold is somebody that I believe is sufficient for the team, can contribute but will need support at some level. And then a slow, which is a red color, is somebody that's not an ideal fit for the team. You must provide support for them to sustain within the organization. The attribute scale is a 1 through 5 sequence, beginning with inadequate at the lowest and then elite at the top. Once again, focusing on those blue and green colors, the elite and good traits that separate the players. For the overall scale, once again, a 1 through 5 sequence, with the top of the scale being transformational leader and a 1 at the bottom being someone who is not a fit for the organization. In terms of my models, I wanted to understand 10 traits, 5 on the personal character side and then 5 on the football character side, along with questions that I would ask in terms of grading and assessing values to these traits. For the first 5, those mirror my 5 for my organizational culture, and then for the second 5, those are some things that I view as important in terms of a football standpoint. Most importantly, I think the bottom trait, elevates, how do they make their teammates better, is something that I find important in terms of evaluating a player. On the personal character standpoint, resilience is something that I find important in terms of somebody's grit and ability to fight through adversity, challenges, and end up on the other side. Beginning with the first player, Kamoko Toure. He was born in Guinea. His father is actually from Guinea and his mother is from the Ivory Coast. He immigrated to New Jersey at a young age. He cites early childhood adversity in terms of having to bathe out of pots, struggling to keep the lights on, but through that all, his family tried to keep him focused on school, having a goal to finish and graduate college eventually. He did have that early childhood adversity that prevented him from finding his way to the sport until high school. His freshman year was actually derailed by an ankle injury that took him away from the game for 2 years. His junior year, his sophomore and junior year, he was at another high school where he ran track and played basketball. His summer of his junior year, he was running track, and a coach found him and discovered him, saw talent and a skill set in him, and convinced him to find his way back to football. He then transitioned to another high school, and in the summer of that junior year, he earned a scholarship offer from the University of Rutgers, where he committed on the spot, went to Rutgers, started 10 games there, and became the first member of his family to graduate college. He was drafted 52nd overall by the Indianapolis Colts in the 2018 NFL Draft. Throughout his football career, he's dealt with constant adversity, ankle injuries. He's only finished 1 full season in his football career out of 8 seasons playing football. And then in terms of understanding the people, places, and events that have shaped this player, I wanted to focus on his injuries at the bottom. In terms of my overall grade, I really thought about the injuries in terms of not only finishing 1 season in his career, and then how that contributed to the grade that I put on him, which is I thought that he was a dependable teammate with good resilience qualities in terms of fighting through those injuries. But I do think that he has an element where he's been separated from the game for so long and hasn't gotten up to speed in terms of a football intelligence and play speed standpoint, and also his ability to elevate his teammates on the field. I thought that those 2 traits in terms of football intelligence and elevates were below average. I do think that he's an individual who's endured tremendous football and personal adversity. I think his resilience will carry him through various setbacks, but he does show a need for support in various interviews from veteran leaders and staff members, and I think that need for support will lead to a long developmental process. For DeForest Buckner, he's from Hawaii. He grew up in Hawaii. His mother is Samoan. His dad is from Knoxville, Tennessee. His dad actually suffered or was injured in a car accident that handicapped him when DeForest was younger, which acted as a catalyst for him to become more of a leader within the family. From a young age, he had to mature and kind of take on more of a leadership role. Also growing up in Hawaii, which was more of a tight-knit culture, family culture, that kind of he shows to this day in terms of his demeanor and his personality. Growing up, his first love was basketball. He played that sport and had goals to go play college basketball. He suffered an injury which prompted his focus to go more towards playing football as his first sport. He attended University of Oregon as a defensive lineman. His defensive line coach at Oregon spoke to his work ethic and how he approaches everything full speed with that mentality. Talked about how when it's time to be a father and husband, he's going to attack that full speed as well. He left Oregon with various accolades and was drafted 7th overall by the 49ers in the 2016 NFL Draft. I think he embodies leadership of on and off the field among his teammates and family. He's a part of the Colts Breakfast Club as someone who shows up early every day for rehab and treatment. Was nominated for the Art Rooney Sportsmanship Award and was named first team All-Pro in his first year with the Colts in 2020. In terms of one of the events that I think acted as a catalyst for his success at this level, when he was baptized, actually, his first year with the Colts, the entire staff showed up and rallied around him at that event, which I viewed as something that was incredibly important to his growth and development that year. It acted as something that will allow him to stay and lead within the team. In terms of how I grade him, I gave him the highest grade on my scale with elite traits across the board. I view him as a transformational leader who attacks everything with a relentless full-speed approach, and he has a consistency and detailed mindset that you can hear in the way he talks and conducts himself in the building. He gives the team a competitive advantage when he's on the field, and he contributes to winning at the highest level. Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips was born in Redlands, California. His parents were musicians in an orchestra and actually met that way. From an early age, they instilled a giving mindset in him. He actually took trips to Mexico and built houses there. So that early childhood exposure exposed him to and gave him a perspective on a lot of different issues and things that were going on in the world. He suffered a few head injuries playing baseball and basketball early in his life, but then found his way to the game of football and developed into the #1 high school recruit in the country coming out. When he was in high school, he signed with UCLA above many other offers. When he signed with UCLA, he had his first season derailed by a high ankle sprain, which caused him to leave the game. After that, he also had another injury which took him away from the game, and following that, he was involved in a car accident that took him away from the game and caused him to suffer his 3rd concussion. That injury caused UCLA policy to be enforced, which recommends that player to medically retire from the game. He walked away from the game for a year and began to plan for the future, working for his dad's law firm and also for iHeartRadio, studying music at a community college. He began his recruiting process shortly after that, but also dropped from 250 pounds to 219 pounds in that process. And then in that process, he found his way back to the game, got a call from Stanford University and entered his name. From that point, he committed to the University of Miami under Manny Diaz. He spent a year at Miami conditioning his body and getting back into football shape, and then developed into a first-round talent at that point, allowing him to propel himself into a high-level prospect. He was selected 18th overall by the Miami Dolphins in the 21 NFL Draft, finished his rookie season with 8.5 sacks, and also was awarded the Nat Moore Community Service Award, which is an award given to the most active Dolphins player in the community. That was impressive for him to attain as a rookie. In terms of events, I think that medical retirement really gave him perspective. I think it's one of the most common things that people use as a knock against Phillips, but I think if you frame it the right way and understand that he came back to the game and used that as a propeller to reach the highest level, I think that contributes to some of the success that he's seen early in his career. In terms of how I graded him, I thought that he was a culture driver. Just in hearing him talk, he seemed very intelligent, quick thinker who understands football and how to elevate the teammates around him. I think he has an inherent internal drive, and I think he does have a goal-oriented mindset and a process-driven function in the way he operates. He shows a level of professionalism as a rookie, which highlights the increasingly rising development curve that I think he has. I think he's a culture driver. For Curtis Brooks was born in Danville, Virginia. His mother was a police officer for the Danville Police Department. He grew up and his dad worked for Goodyear Tire. He actually found his way to the game later in high school, not starting playing football until his senior year. He grew up playing basketball. He attended George Washington High School, only played 2 seasons of high school football. He totaled 82 tackles and committed to Cincinnati as a 2-star recruit under Tommy Tuberville. In that process, he spent years kind of developing at Cincinnati, learning the game of football and developing his leadership there. He then propelled himself during the COVID-19 pandemic into more of a starting role and a key role in their defense. In this time, obviously, Cincinnati showed success on the field, especially within their defensive unit, and he's been commended as one of the leaders and someone who embodies a selfless mentality within their group. Despite being credited as their defensive MVP last season, he was not invited to the NFL Combine, and then he was selected 216th overall by the Indianapolis Colts. I think that one of the events that kind of acted as a catalyst was seeing his parents work from an early age, as he shows a toughness and a gritty mentality that kind of exudes in the way he plays and the way he commands himself. He's acquired a more reserved person, but I do think that the leadership that he showed at Cincinnati and allowing them to achieve high-level goals, reaching the college football playoff from a lower level, is something that we should be proud of and should commend. I think that he's a culture driver, someone who elevates those people around him. I think that I just gave him good traits across the board because he showed grit to earn his starting job at Cincinnati throughout 6 years. He has an innate personal and physical makeup and football makeup that will only allow him to thrive within an organization. To begin with player personnel, once again, this scale is built on a color coding system, beginning with hard, go, and go. I wanted to focus on those elite and good traits, those blue and green traits that make players unique. My scale is a 1 through 10 sequence, beginning with 1 at the bottom, not for us. Kind of in the middle there, someone who's a key role player and just trying to understand how players fit within a team. At the top of that green scale, the impact starter. And then at the very top of my tier is a Hall of Fame player. Building from what I did last year, I kept the tag system, but wanted to change up the formatting. On the left side of the grade, I did indicators, which signifies the trait that makes the player unique. So those are the traits that I view, such as a horseshoe guy, someone I identify who has that quality, someone who's position flexible with rare measurables, who also adds speed to the roster, high football intelligence, team leadership, plays special teams. On the right side is an alert, which signifies a concern that limits the player, which is someone who lacks bulk for the position, lacks height, question his character, question speed, question football intelligence, question competitiveness, and question durability. Moving into my first player, Larry Ogunjobi. Larry Ogunjobi is a 6-year NFL veteran. He's from Jamestown, North Carolina. Actually began playing the game of football later in his high school years. His mom actually had to force him to begin playing the game. He then signed with Charlotte in their first ever recruiting class, was the first player ever to wear the number 49 jersey, which signifies somebody who embodies the core values of that program. His head coach there credited him with being a true team leader. He started every game in his 4 years at Charlotte. He finished his career as the all-time leader in tackles, sacks, TFLs, and quarterback pressures. He was then drafted by the Cleveland Browns with the 65th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. Total 12 sacks in 3 years with the Browns before signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. Last year, he logged a career high in sacks. Also missed the last 3 games of the season with a foot injury. He failed a physical with the Chicago Bears after signing a large contract with them, and then just recently signed a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Steelers. Beginning in my summary of the player, I think he's a quick, twitchy, explosive, thickly built interior defensive lineman who succeeds best at 3 technique. I think he shows quick feet and active hands to create pressure. I think he has an ability and an innate feel to retrace and collapse the pocket as a pass rusher. He shows average strength to hold up blocks in the run game, functional strength, but I think he struggles to hold up against double teams and will get blown off the ball at times. I think he shows a high motor at times, but lacks the requisite speed to chase ball carriers in space. And I do think he lacks some of the change of direction ability to mirror ball carriers' cuts in the backfield. I think he's a vertical upfield rusher who can truly disrupt blocking schemes. I think he has a combination of initial quickness and explosiveness and adds layers to the pass rush. I do think he shows instincts as a pass rusher to retrace, which is how he gets most of his sack production. And I do think he disrupts the pocket at a fairly consistent level, but lacks that top gear speed and that top gear finishing instinct to be a high level dominant pass rusher in this league. Because of that, I thought his good traits, his green traits for me, were his explosiveness, quickness, pass rush, and his football character. Because of that, I thought he was a horseshoe guy who's position flexible and shows team leadership. I think he's a key role player, but I do question his speed. Moving into my next player, Harrison Phillips. Harrison Phillips has attended the University of Stanford. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. Growing up in Nebraska, he always had a goal of reaching the NFL level. He had NFL taped to his bedroom ceiling and his bathroom mirror. This goal-setting mentality was instilled in him by his parents from an early age. He was recruited out of high school by the longtime defensive line coach at Stanford, Randy Hartman, convinced him to go there and learn the skill set. He signed with Stanford University. Coming out of high school, was named first team All Pac-12 by the end of his career, was also selected to the AFCA Good Works team, and he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills with the 96th pick in the NFL draft. He finished last season with a career high in tackles. I think he's a blue-collar player with a gritty mentality and football IQ. He started the Harrison's Playmakers Foundation, which serves children with developmental differences. He has been nominated for the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year award for 2 straight seasons, 2020 and 2021. I do think he's a glue guy who sets a great example within the locker room. Going into my evaluation on the player, I think he's sturdy built, strong and powerful in his lower body. I think he has an explosive and quick first step to get his hands on at the point of attack. He's a rotational 1 and 3 tech who functions best in terms of his gap control ability. I think he's a linear mover who's kind of a boxy mover, who lacks the hip flexibility and lateral movement skills. I think he displays good run instincts to diagnose and disengage. He's a good tackler. I do think he lacks the counter rush moves, the bend and acceleration to excel from wide alignments in the pass game. And once again, lacks that second gear to accelerate and win with speed. I do think that he has to win with that initial combination of quickness and power, but he shows toughness and physicality along with grit to strain through the whistle and finish plays. I think he's a hard-nosed, strong, and powerful gap control 1-3 tech who's primarily successful at 1 tech and fits best in our game at that position with a quick first step to excel in the run game, but I think he lacks the athletic ability bend and acceleration to excel as a pass rusher. I think he's a key role player who's a horseshoe guy with good football intelligence and team leadership, but I do question his overall speed. Moving into Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins went to Mississippi State University. He's a 4th-year NFL veteran from Clarksville, Mississippi. Grew up in a rough background. The expectations came from his city, small town. Being a standout athlete kind of weighed on him growing up. He attended Clarksdale High School, rated a 3-star recruit in the 2014 class. He had 4 D1 FBS offers prior to being offered by Mississippi State late in the recruiting process. His versatility and talent showed at Mississippi State in terms of his ability to excel at multiple positions. He was a 2-time member of the SEC Academic Honor Roll and was voted a first-team All-American by The Athletic in 2018. He was drafted by the Green Bay Packers with the 44th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. He has started 38 games in 3 years, aligning at center, left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. His ability to command the front and provide versatility along the line is commended by his coaches and his staff. He also participated in the Special Olympics event in this April, which shows support for inclusion in sports. He's a reserved, quiet, but uniquely gifted and highly intelligent player who provides the winning edge for his front on a weekly basis. Going into the summary, I think he's a long, big-bodied player with good athleticism. I think he shows premier pass protection footwork with the fluid ability to set and pass pro and a tempo, rhythm, and timing to his movement. I think he's a quick setter, allows rushers to work into his frame, but then will use a snatch and trap technique to get them to the ground. He can lock his hips and reset in pass pro, shows anchor to flop, and sustain with functional strength in that aspect, which is why I gave him a good play strength grade. He lacks high-level power to move the line of scrimmage consistently. I think he just has an average to below average motor and finish. He's not a road grader in the run game at all. But he does have the athleticism and the length to reach the second level on zone and gap schemes. He shows good awareness to communicate stunts and twists along the line. I think he can line interior and on the perimeter in terms of the tackle. I think he's a long athletic technician with good hand usage, footwork, bending, explosiveness. I think he has the football intelligence to seamlessly transition between positions. But I do think he lacks an element of power and motor in the run game to excel. Moving into Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson went to Notre Dame University. He's a fifth-year NFL veteran from Homedale Township, New Jersey. His father instilled a tough, gritty mentality in him, wanted him to be involved in multiple sports. He actually trained in Taekwondo when he was in high school. Redshirted his freshman year at Notre Dame, was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. By the end of his college career, he was voted a team captain, named the first team unanimous All-American. He was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts with the 6th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. Started 64 games in his career, aligning primarily at left guard, with 8 snaps at left tackle in his career in the Raiders game in 2020. He's a first-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, and one of the best players in the NFL. He's been commended by his teammates as somebody who embodies leadership at the highest level, someone who shows leadership and command along the front. He recently raised over $250,000 for the V Foundation to battle cancer. I think he's a uniquely skilled individual with the high work ethic and football character. Moving into my evaluation on the player, he's a good-sized, violent, and powerful left guard with elite athleticism, balance, explosiveness. I think he shows good footwork and anchor to sustain the pocket on the interior. I think he possesses an initial shock in his hands to displace defensive linemen at the point of attack. He dominates at the second and third levels with his finishing instinct and motor. I think he shows power and force to excel on gap runs with agility and movement, to excel in space as well. I do think that he demonstrates a chip on his shoulder and a competitive edge that you can visibly see grow throughout games. He finishes blocks and is a road grader, prides himself on elevating the play of those around him, communicating stunts, twists, and things of that nature. I think he's a violent enforcer. I think he's a generational NFL talent. And I thought that he had a level of John Anna-like athleticism and footwork and agility, combined with the level of Larry Allen level power, strength, physicality at the point of contact. I think he's a horseshoe guy with position flexibility, high football intelligence, and leadership. I think he's a Hall of Fame level talent, but I do question his durability. With his violent play style, I question how much he'll be able to sustain in the long term of his career. Keen Schaefer-Baker is my CFL or my non-NFL player. He went to the University of Guelph. He grew up in Ontario, Canada. He played youth sports college football, has not played any American football in this country at all. He trained with the strength coach, Shea Pierre, who got him trained up in terms of excelling in the vertical jump, agility, explosiveness drills, and trying to get him prepared for the next level. They talk about his work ethic and what he brings to the table every day. They spoke very highly of him in the pre-draft process. He just separates himself from others. He's a young player who's only 24 years old. He won the Saskatchewan Roughriders Rookie of the Year award last year. Aligns at left wide out, right wide out, and slot back for them. He shows a growth mindset and a competitive fire that I think shines in his play, and he's well regarded as one of the high upside talents in the CFL. Into my evaluation, I think he's a taller, longer, narrow hip receiver. I think he shows some stiffness in terms of his ability to get in and out of breaks, but I think his unique trait that separates him and would allow him to get a 90-man roster spot is his ability to adjust at the catch point, along with his ball skills and ability to make acrobatic catches. I think he shows playmaking ability as they align him in multiple spots, use him out in space, and allow him to create. He's a tall, raw wide receiver. I think he shows competitive toughness, functional strength, and ball skills, but I do think he lacks the top-end speed, the second gear, to excel on vertical concept, and also to run polished routes against high-level DBs. I think that he's a player who's worth the 90-man roster spot because of his ball skills, play strength, competitiveness, physicality, and his football character. Moving into salary cap, in terms of assessing the value of Quentin Nelson as a player, I wanted to understand how he functions within this team. I think he's a generational Hall of Fame talent at a non-premium position. Looking at his 2022 cash number, he's making approximately $13.7 million. His rookie contract is $23.8 million with a signing bonus of $15.4 million. In terms of looking at offensive line positional value across the league, the Colts OL cash spending is $45.4 million this year, which is 21.8% of the current cap. In 2022, the NFL average OL cash spending is $41.9 million, which is 20.1% of the current cap. The top three teams in terms of OL cash spending, you can kind of see the separation from the Panthers, who are spending $66.6 million versus the Colts, $45.4 million. From a player agent perspective, I think that this is a player who will plead his case in terms of the scarcity of elite talent at his position, especially on the interior. I think it makes him invaluable to the development of offensive weapons, and I do think it makes him an appealing target for any NFL organization. He plays through pain. He started 51 straight games prior to missing 4 in 2021, and he's a 3-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler at age 26. Looking at all-time OL contract value, I think that this is somewhere in the ballpark of what Quentin would be asking for from his side. Offensive line-wise, Trent Williams signed the biggest deal in history with 6 years, $138 million. Offensive guard-wise, Zach Martin has the highest deal at 6 years, $84 million. Trent Williams signed his deal at age 32, and Zach Martin signed his at age 27. Moving into these cap numbers, just breaking it down and subtracting from a cash to current cap standpoint, you can see that number increase from 2022, 2023, 2024, that green number at the bottom. You see that more cash is free, and that's just kind of how I thought through the process of, is it feasible for the team to extend him and give him the requisite amount of money that he will require. From a contract extension standpoint, I gave him 6 years, $117.3 million. Because of all of those factors, I think that he's a dominant player. Although it's at a non-premium position, I do think he impacts winning at the highest level. I guarantee his first year salary and his entire signing bonus, which I gave $30 million. I also used these numbers that I showed on the previous slides to project into the future, understanding the current projections of the cap and future years being $20 million, for it to increase $20 million each year. With that in mind, I took that number in proportion to the projected cap, percentage to come up with my salary or my total value number for each respective year. That's kind of how I broke it down, working backwards from that standpoint, looking at team deals and how they structure contracts. Typically at the peak of an NFL offensive lineman's career, he does not account for more than 10% of the team's overall cap. I viewed this to be feasible in terms of the team extending and of allowing Nelson to sustain within the team, while also being able to extend other talent on the roster. Moving into my analytics portion, I wanted to focus on identifying small differences in players, once again identifying those blue and green traits that make players unique. 97 former FCS players made 53-man rosters last year, which is 5.7% of the total NFL. I wanted to identify unique traits that match what we're looking for. I used percentiles to quantify and compare historically, and then I used tape as the foundation, understanding context in each of the situations, and using numbers as a means to verify what you've already seen on film. In terms of my threshold hierarchy, I used my scale, 1 through 5, inadequate to elite. In terms of breaking down the percentiles, 87th to 99th percentile I considered elite, with 71st to 86th considered good. I wanted to consider those traits in terms of evaluating players and how they project from the FCS level or non-FBS level. I looked at one position, wide receivers. In terms of the differentiating factors, I wanted to look at it from a context standpoint. What is their role in the offense? For my player that I used in this example slide, I used Cooper Kupp. In terms of the pre-draft process, he was looked at as 11 personnel combo receiver who could excel for the Rams on condensed splits, allowing them to stretch the field vertically and horizontally, and allowing him to impact the run game as a blocker. I wanted to understand his break point and his game versus time speed, so I looked at 3-cone, max speed, and 40-yard dash. For scoring production, I looked at his career yards, career touchdowns, and then I wanted to understand how he had an impact at the catch point in terms of drop percentage. For his elite and good traits, I saw his 3-cone, max speed at the 2017 Senior Bowl, his career yards, career touchdowns, and drop percentage as elite or good traits that contribute to success. And within the context of this player and the role that he fits for his team, these traits present an opportunity to see the data from a different perspective and see him through a lens that allows you to project him to an elite talent at this level. For cornerbacks, I wanted to understand once again their role in the defense. For my example player on this side, I used Kenny Moore, my key variable being him as a base nickel cornerback in this defense. I wanted to understand as a smaller corner coming from a lower level, what is his length, speed, explosiveness. So I looked at arm length, 40-yard dash, their vert, and broad jump. I looked at his tackling in terms of career tackles, and then at the catch point, I wanted to understand how he was impacting it, more so in terms of pass breakups than interceptions. For his elite and good traits, I saw his arm length at 32 5/8 as an elite trait, which puts him in the 87th percentile against all corners. His vertical jump, 40.5, which puts him in the 92nd percentile. And then his career tackles is also another elite trait in terms of comparing it against cornerbacks in that time frame from 2013 to 2016. His good traits, his broad jump, and his career PBUs, and his average trait in proportion to those other traits was his 40-yard dash, and I believe that those other traits that I presented compensate for that lack of, or that average speed, and show that he can excel in other areas. And my last question, the bonus question, in terms of the NCAA transfer portal, what are the long-term ramifications? Has there been a measurable impact on the relative level of talent reaching the next level? In terms of my viewpoint on it, I think that small schools still capitalize on developing undervalued talent. The drawback is that there's a farm system being built in terms of Power 5 teams being able to develop or poach from smaller programs and build a larger pool of talent at their level. I looked at the 2021 transfer portal as an example, which had 2,053 portal entries. The number of entries per Power 5 team was 12.8. 16% of FBS players entered the portal, while 12% of FCS players entered the portal. At the Power 5 level, 43% of those portal entrants remained Power 5. 31% of P5 entrants went Group of 5 level, and then only 18% of those Power 5 entrants went non-FBS. That just goes to show that the Power 5 is retaining its top talent while also acquiring top talent from those lower levels. The impact is that they retain that top talent and then acquire top G5 non-FBS talent, which contributes to them sustaining their level of success and still pumping out even more talent than they have in years past. And then thank you for your time. I really enjoyed doing this project and the entire process of going through, studying each of the aspects of an organization.
Outstanding once again.
Thank you.
You know, the preparation, the presentation, the detail, A+. Really liked how your scales kind of aligned throughout. I thought that was really cool. And obviously, the detail, colors, information, again, all top notch.
Thank you.
In terms of the evals, I thought you really improved from last year.
Thank you.
I think Jamie's help has, rubbed off on you. Again, I mean, they're very detailed, very knowledgeable, had great flow, and just, presented with confidence. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Greg, let's talk contract here. First of
Yes,
all,
sir.
presentation was very good.
Thank you.
I echo what John said. Like last year, I thought you were very good. This year, I think you even took it up another step. So,
Thank you.
Very good. Love the detail you put into this. Talking about the percentage of O-line spending compared to other clubs. the agent-player perspective, just kind of getting in their minds what you expect them to think. I would say, like, you talked about Zach Martin being the highest paid one, and overall extension values, yes, but not necessarily an average
Got it.
for guards.
Got it.
But I get where you're going with that. Curious, where did you come up with the $20 million jumps in the cap?
The $20 million in terms of the cash to current cap?
In 2023, the cap would jump $20 million.
Oh, I pulled it from different online resources, just trying to figure out how people are projecting the cap to increase. I just saw examples of people saying that more money would be flowing into the league, more revenue, which would cause the cap to grow tremendously in future years.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconception on how this gets distributed.
Got it.
TV money hits and stuff, but I do expect that to be actually fairly close to what we're expecting. So it's a good job with that. As for the breakdown of the contract, I really like the detail. You did the base salary, the signing bonus, roster bonus. I do have a few questions for you in here. But first, just so you know, like on the signing bonus, $30 million, you can only prorate out 5 years.
Okay.
You got a 6-year contract, so you really got to take that last $5 million, put it back in at $6 million per year. And the last year there's no proration, so that will change the percentage of the cap
Got it.
each of these years. Second part, you kind of have a obviously go heavy on signing bonus early on, which keeps your salary somewhat low, relative speaking, in years 1 and 2, and that's normal. And then you jump up to 21.3 and 23.3 in years 3 and 4. But it's going to be unrealistic to drop it back to 9.9 and 7.6. There's no way he plays for that.
Got it.
And I wouldn't want to offer a deal like that because by the time you get there, he's going to be squawking about a new deal.
Got it.
And so it's kind of an unrealistic way to spread that money out.
That sounds good.
What made you settle on, I believe it was $19.5 million?
For his salary?
And his average, yeah.
For his average salary, I thought that he was worth that in terms of I looked at Trent Williams' contract, and I thought that he was somewhere in the middle of high-level offensive guard value and top tackle value, and I just thought that he deserved that amount of money proportionate.
I fully expect the agents to bring left tackles into the equation. We're going to try to steer clear of that best we can since it's a guard, but obviously left tackles make more. You break down, you didn't discuss it in your presentation, but you break down the likely to be earned and the non-likely to be earned. Just give me a little insight to what you were thinking there.
So in terms of the likely to be earned, I just thought that if I went with more team-oriented, so I looked at win AFC South, also along with, being lowest in the NFL in terms of quarterback pressures and stats of that nature, I thought that it might prompt him more in terms of accepting the deal if he understood that those likely to be earned goals were more attainable.
Yeah. So we didn't win the AFC South last year, so that would be a non-likely to be earned this year.
Okay.
So, and what I don't know what you're trying to do here is that every year or is that
yes,
contract? Like, is it $1 million every year if we win the AFC South?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's going to probably be a little high to add $5 million on top of 19.5 in that sense, but
Okay.
all in all, I love the creativity behind it. You did a really good job.
Thank you. So.
Great job. What I liked the most is I feel like you took all the specific feedback we gave you last year and improved specifically in all those areas, whether it's your evaluations, the inflection in your voice. I remember I said that specifically. You had a lot more your juice. You still have that kind of deep, I can't describe it, but your voice. But you had a lot more intonation. I believe, we could go back to the tape, but I want to say you stayed behind the podium last time.
Yes, I did.
But you were in front. You always speak with your hands, but you made more of an effort to do that as well. And it was self-evident. It was awesome.
Thank you.
The improvement.
Thank you.
We've seen people present year to year, and usually for the most part, I feel like they stay the same or they get worse. But it was good.
Thank you.
In terms of the analytics piece, when you talk talk about the percentiles?
Yes.
Out of what population are you talking about?
Out of, so for some of them, it's within the context of their position. For most of them, actually, it's within the context of their position. I pulled from Mock Draftable, website that tracks combine stats. But for some of the stats, trying to think of which ones in particular. For some of them, it's in the entire pool of where they were when they were in college football for the entire NCAA.
So, for example, Kenny Moore, 32 and 5/8, 87th percentile. Like
I looked at all corners.
All corners
Recorded in the history of the combine compared to his pro day measurements.
Got it.
So
all NFL prospects.
Right.
So some people who may not have made it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I compared it to the measurables that Mock Draftable uses in terms of the data that they pull from the combine, and then entered his arm length that they recorded at his pro day since he wasn't at the combine, and kind of compared that and made that percentile proportionate to it.
Got it. Awesome. I think whenever you use percentiles, you got to be specific about what the population is.
Got it.
'Cause I think you had percentile speed for Cooper Kupp too, in 20.7, 97th percentile. What was that 97th percentile at the Senior Bowl?
Yes, at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, 2017.
Because in college, a lot of guys hit 22 because there's a lot of fast guys who never make it to the league.
Got it.
So that was good. And then finally, just with the small schools becoming farm part of the farm system for the FBS,
Yeah.
how have you guys approached the transfer portal?
Yes. So we'll have a lot of players who, for example, we had a defensive end this year who was a freshman All-American, had 13 sacks as a freshman. And as soon as the season, or as soon as the portal really started ending or beginning, he began to get offers and looks from other programs. So for us, it's more about keeping an eye on those players that are transferring from the Power 5 level to, in case of those situations where they have an NIL offer from a bigger school or things like that, we can then parlay that with bringing a player from the higher level and kind of comparing and building that talent, keeping that talent pool consistent.
Great job.
Thank you.
And Greg, I thought it was outstanding.
Thank you.
You know, as far as being in this setting, I thought it was one of the best ones I've seen
Thank you.
to date. So
Thank you.
you should be really proud. It was really detailed and well thought out, from the slide layouts to, everything was clean. I kept looking for some type of spelling, grammatical, punctuation error. I couldn't find one. So great job on that. I like the colors. I like how you kept things simple on the grading scales. And then just to echo what John said, I definitely noticed your confidence stepping out in front of the podium. Did a great job of, referring to the slides, but not just reading the slides, and then continually, drawing our eye contact and attention. So you did a really good job at that. I can tell you really knew your material well, and you weren't just relying heavily on the slides and preparation. The indicators and alerts I thought was a nice touch, so that way you get a feel for, both what are the positive alerts and then which ones might be negative. And then even the detail of Quentin having 8 snaps at left tackle. I remember there was a previous presentation that kind of dinged him for his versatility, and I was going to make a note of it after, but I was like, how is someone going to know, unless you worked in an organization, that he took 8 snaps at left tackle? But the fact that you pulled that out just shows really the level of detail that you went above and beyond.
Thank you.
I like that you broke it down in percentiles and referenced Kupp's max speed and kind of juxtaposed that with his time speed, which the Rams obviously indicated that was a big factor. And then drafting him, and then the transfer portal analysis, I thought was a very thorough breakdown. So
Thank you.
Really good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, second or third, everything has been said. Totally agree with that. I think you were really creative in your grading scale in the sense that a lot of people top grade as some sort of average, and you really looked at it as fit and culture. You really looked at those factors. I like that. I think that's a creative way of looking at it, and I think that's something we kind of hold near and dear here. Like that touch. I like how whenever you went through your attributes, you really kind of pulled out those two. On one side, it was the resilience, which I definitely think is top of the list, and then you talked about that, their ability to elevate. Again, even though there's 5 factors, not all factors really are weighted love the way you present that narrative form, that storytelling form. You know, going back and talking all of that, and you know, telling their story in a way that allows we kind of relate to the player in their journey. That's a great way, chronologically telling their story, and then kind of highlighting at the bottom, you know, key elements of people, places, and events that you know kind of really shaped them. Overall, you did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
A plus. No, A plus plus. I didn't see your presentation last year, but wow, I'm blown away. That was outstanding. You were clearly confident, prepared, detailed. I loved all of it. I mean, great, that was strong. From the player engagement, be one of one. I want to be a part of your team, buddy. You're going to have one day for sure. I want to go on. It was clear team concept. Everyone matters. Everything matters. All the values, the traits. I loved all of them. I loved the quotes. I love that you threw Dungy in there. That's my guy. I love him. No, it was strong. Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. Just, you know, consistent content, great flow, right? Just like everybody's saying, but, you know, just being your second year, was your approach any different to the project? And then if it was, just maybe explain a little bit.
Yes, from the beginning, first thing I did was look at my video from last year and just look at the feedback and cross-reference that. Yes, sir. So I looked at that and just cross-referenced and wanted to figure out how I can improve. One thing that I noticed was, once again, just standing behind the podium. And then also, I knew I could have gone into more detail in certain aspects, such as operations, such as salary cap for sure. And I wanted to make sure I made an effort to research those things much more this time. So I wanted to do that.
Nice job, brother.
Thank you.